I've made a few videos talking about how to get world record worthy runs, but some things have changed since I made my last video, and they're actually pretty significant. As I mentioned in my last video, you can always go to megabonk.fun to see a verified leaderboard with a full VOD attached. And just some hours ago, a streamer called SilverName uploaded his record run of 805,000 kills. At first I thought this had to be a cheated run, but I actually watched through the entire VOD and it's definitely real. And in this video I want to talk about his strategy that allowed him to get a score so much higher than everyone else in the leaderboard. And the one thing that surprised me the most is that he is not running Soul Harvester at all. He has it toggled off. Now the reason for this is that while Soul Harvester makes the game a lot easier early on, it's not a great item to get late in the game. Some of the legendaries, like these ones, would just be so much better to get at any other point in the game besides the very start. But that does beg the question, how do you survive early on in that case? And the answer to that is that you just have to focus a bit more on upgrading your damage output early, rather than super aggressively focusing on leveling up your XP and Curse Tome. Now don't get me wrong here, you still want to upgrade your XP and Curse Tome as much as possible, but you want to do it in a calculated manner. Now, besides focusing a bit more on upgrading your weapons, another important thing he does is that he explores the map as quickly as he can and takes all the shrines as quickly as possible. He is of course also exploring the map to find all the shady guys and statues in the hopes of finding a green credit card. He does not pick up a single chest before he has explored the whole map and found at least one green credit card. But after picking up just a single one, he will start to open chests. Now shrines are also a great way of getting decent damage output early on. For instance, here he was lucky and found a legendary shrine where he gets the option of getting +2 projectile count. This is a very strong option early on for survivability, so shrines are also pretty important to get decent stats. As for the greed shrines, you do preferably want to use all of these before going to the next level, but you don't need to take them instantly. If you're struggling, you probably shouldn't touch them, but you can always pull up the map later when you get a bit stronger and go back for it. Now the two other major updates from the last video I made is what items to run and what to banish. In his run, he is using both the Ice Crystal and the Skull Egg. The Skull makes sense because you do want to increase your difficulty as much as you can early on. The Ice Crystal does also make some sense because of Noelle's passive, where her damage gets increased per frozen enemy. I will say I am a bit uncertain on how much impact it actually had on his run, and he did only have 2 throughout his entire run. But then again, he is the current world rank 1, so in the current meta I guess you should keep them on. You probably don't want too many of them though. As for the epics, he actually has both Grandmax Tonic and Curse Grabbies turned off. One reason is obviously because he wants to have a lower pool of epics to get credit card easily, but Curse Grabbies would actually also work against his strategy, because while this item does deal good damage over the run, it also lowers your HP, and what he is doing is that he's building around Holy Book. And when you pair Holy Book with the right item, Holy Book basically becomes a 5th weapon. This is because Holy Book has the ability to proc other items and do crit damage, just like your other weapons. Book deals more damage the more HP you have, so the build is actually focused on increasing your max HP so that Holy Book can deal as much damage as possible. This is also why the grabbies are turned off, because you do not want to lower your HP. Since max HP is a focus point, he is also not banishing Beefy Ring. Beefy Ring gives you more damage for however much HP you have, but it actually also gives you +10 HP per ring. Besides that, Slurp Gloves are actually pretty decent because they can give you a burst of healing, and when they do, your Holy Book does more damage. So with that explained, let's talk about the banishes. There are 4 items that you want to ban as soon as you see them, and that is the Scarf, the Spiky Shield, the Giant Fork, and the Power Gloves. Now the reason for the Fork is actually that it's currently bugged. If you have more than 4x crit damage, then the mega crit that you would get from the fork actually deals less damage than a normal crit, which is why you currently have to ban that item. Other than that, he banishes the mirror after getting 1. The same goes for Magnet, he picks up 1 and then banish it. And the final banned item in this run was actually the beer. The reason being is that he does not want the -5% max HP it gives you. Now, from what I could understand, this was the one banish that was not 100% certain from the start. Before banishing the beer, he was also considering banishing the Skull Egg, because his difficulty was already over 600%. He did decide against it though and banished the beer a bit later instead. While the ban definitely makes sense, since it's pretty bad for both Beefy Ring damage and Holy Book, I do think this is the one item that you don't absolutely have to banish. In my opinion, you could choose to use the Soul Harvester and then banish that one after getting one instead. But that being said, the beer is pretty detrimental to this build if you happen to get a lot of them. But it is a blue item, so if your luck is high, you hopefully won't see too many of them. Now, I've already talked a bit about early survival, but just to round off, let's talk about late game. So in the first round, he only managed to stay alive during the final swarm for a bit under a minute, but then on the next map, he managed to stay alive for 20 minutes. This is because he now had enough luck from credit card to get great items like Holy Book, which is a key item, and he also got Anvil before leveling up his weapons too much, as well as Ice Cube and Overpowered Lamp, and he also had 2 hourglasses, so he could afford to die at least once on this stage. He also does really min-max a lot. He leaves the timeout power-ups around the map, and then during the final swarm, as soon as he started getting hit, he will go around and pick them up so he can pick up his chests in peace and also gain a few extra kills in the end. On the next stage, he manages to survive for 130 minutes, which is just insane. One of the reasons for this is that at this point, he obviously has a lot of freeze and stun effects, but he also has a bunch of movement speed and jumps. So he kind of just jumps around the map the entire time and basically outruns the ghosts. On each map, he goes to the next stage right after being forced to use one of his hourglasses. On the final boss stage, he survived for 74 minutes, which is a bit lower than the last one, but that's mainly because it's harder to run around freely here since there's less surface, but 74 minutes is still pretty ridiculous. Now, funnily enough, on the top of his leaderboard was one single Curse Doll. Curse Doll is a very strong item because it deals 30% of an enemy's max HP, which essentially kills any non-boss enemy in less than 4 seconds. Emphasis on non-boss here because bosses take significantly less damage from this item, almost none in fact. But because he survived for so long, a lot of the ghosts got cursed over time, which is why it dealt so much damage. The other items on the leaderboard is kinda what you would expect. Now, you might find it strange how far down Holy Book is, considering I said the whole build is built around it, but it is a high damage dealer, and the important aspect of it is that it also procs other items, so it makes it possible for other items to deal a lot more damage. But anyway, that's all I got for this video. Of course, massive shout out to SilverName. I do really think you should go to his channel and check out the VOD, at least watch the entirety of the first tier, because it is very interesting and it gives you a lot of insight into how you should be playing if you want to chase world record runs. I'll of course leave both his Twitch channel and the link to the VOD in the description.